I don't want to be modest. I don't necessarily like being the person being put into this particular position. However, as host of the show, I will take this position and I will ask the question because I care about this country and I care about how this country turns out because I live in this country. And if somebody is rising in the ranks who I don't necessarily think are all cognitively there, then I think that's a big deal. Is Joe Biden too old? I've asked this question once before. My answer then remains as it is now. The answer is no. In and of itself, no. But it's a secondary question on whether that individual in that age seems to be affecting that individual's cognitive capabilities, which, again, the age thing in and of itself doesn't necessarily matter. What matters more so is whether or not you can do the duties of the job. And part of those duties is to be cognitively there. The media keeps fouling gaffes from Joe Biden as gaffes as opposed to mental confusion, which at this point I'm beginning to think is more likely to be true. Joe Biden doesn't seem to know where he is, and that confusion seems to be showing up more and more and more as this race continues. The latest bit of mental confusion by Joe Biden. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content and you find yourself coming back here often, please like, share, subscribe. Also, if you're really digging this content, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you for allowing me the opportunity to do it. So I'm not going to be long on this video. I saw this clip, and initially when I saw it, I didn't fully get it, and then it hit me all at once, and I had a laughing fit. Because the video is bad in and of itself, but Joe Biden's correction is even worse. Have you ever heard the thing, it's not necessarily the crime, it's the cover-up, it's the cover-up that gets you caught? That's kind of how this is. It was bad, but then the cover-up drawing emphasis on how bad it was. This comparison, what starts off as class, and he ties it to race. It's got a weird way. And then he tries to cover it. Look, cognitive fitness is an aspect of the job. I don't care your age. I don't care your race. I don't care your sex. I don't care your sexual preference. I don't even care if you're cheating on your husband or your wife in your capacities of doing your job. What I care is, can you do the job? That's what matters to me. Now, part and parcel, however, of having a bit of age on you is, of course, slow down. And let's be very honest. Anybody who's ever seen Joe Biden in the past, Joe Biden right now on the campaign trail, I've said on more than one occasion, is a shadow of his former self. He is a shadow of a man that he used to be. And mentally, he doesn't seem to be all that aware. On multiple occasions, he can't seem to stop calling Theresa May Margaret Thatcher, which is a little weird. He sent people to a non-existing website. In one case, one of the articles was asking, did Joe Biden even know how texts work? Which is, again, one article asked, did Joe Biden even know where he was? He seemed surprised that he was on the debate stage. In other cases, he didn't know where the shootings had taken place that had literally just took place, that he was on the stage essentially going after Trump over. He seemed persistently confused. He seems confused. Also, he didn't have the sense enough to realize in a primary where blacks vote 90% Democrat, and that vote, that block of vote, is a mainstay in the Democratic Party that's been so for years. And at a time where blacks are asking openly, maybe the Democratic Party is taking us for granted. He gets on a stage and he screams to high heaven, raises the hand of outright in the day races as the height of civility and working with those races as the height of civility. And then didn't have the political acumen enough or sense enough to realize that he was going to be attacked for it on the debate stage, seeing as he was being attacked for it all week prior. This is the man that we're told is electable. Is mental fitness an aspect of electability? And are we really so desperate to beat Trump that they're willing to put somebody else up who doesn't seem to be all that mentally there? I don't ask the question, is Joe Biden too old? Part of it is bombastic, fair enough, and part of it is hyperbolic, fair enough. And people are attacking him for the age thing. I'm not attacking him for the age thing. I'm attacking him more so that he's not mentally fit to do the job, and that all of these gaffes are instances of mental confusion where Joe Biden doesn't quite know where he is, or at the very least doesn't quite have either the political acumen enough, which he might have had when he was much, much younger, and again, was more together in regards to his mental faculties. My point is this. These are not just gaffes. These are mental slips. And these are mental slips of a man who doesn't seem to want to run for a presidential race. He just wants to be president, almost as an achievement, not necessarily because it digs him, if that makes sense. There's a difference in those things. And again, these mental slips are concerning, or at the very least they should be. This is Joe Biden. He's given a speech to the Asian and Latino Coalition PAC. Listen to what he says here. This was fascinating.
And the other thing we should do is we should challenge these students. We should challenge students in these schools to have advanced placement programs in these schools. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What? What? What did he just say? Poor kids are just as what? What? Roll that back. Maybe I misheard that. Poor kids are just as what, Joe?
As talented as white kids.
What?
Kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Poor kids are just as talented as white kids. Now, here's the problem with this. You went from something that was class, poor kids are just as talented as white kids, that is outright race. You made a weird flip there, Joe. It sounds like you are tying this notion of poverty to an aspect of blackness, which is somewhat problematic, Joe. Let's hear that again, and maybe you want to clean that up. So let's let you try that again.
Right, and just as talented as white kids, wealthy kids, black kids.
I love to clean up. Now, you could say that if Joe wasn't altogether there, he wouldn't have had sense enough to realize, oh, I fucked up there. I screwed up. I need to clean that up. And the funny part is, the cleanup makes it worse, because the cleanup makes zero sense. Listen to the cleanup. The cleanup makes no sense at all, even in the context of what he's talking about. The context is, we should challenge poor kids because there is a conception that poor kids can't do as well as you would think that the next thing that will come here is rich kids. But that's not where he went. He went with white kids. The insinuation being that poverty is in some case somehow tied to race. And not just tied to race, that achievement also is inextricably linked into this. And then we should challenge black poor kids. I mean, look, you could have cleaned this up in a better way, but the cleanup is worse, if we're being honest.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids.
I love the weird clapping, it's like, and then if you look for a split second, Joe, he realizes he fucks up and he stutters when he says it. This is awesome. Look at this part. Wait. Look at his mouth.
Just as talented as white kids.
Oh, he fucks up. Split second. Right there. He can't get it out. It takes a split second for him to be like, oh wait, I fucked up. Rich. Yes, rich. Because I said poor. So I need to say rich now. Rich. But I also said black before, or white kid. So I need to say Asian. and black and gay and alien kids. Fuck. I keep fucking up. They're going to start questioning my mental fitness for the job. Yes, we've started doing that, Joe. Let's hear me again.
Do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
I like to stutter. Hold on.
Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids.
I love clean up. And I love the lemmings in the audience. They knew it. They knew something went wrong. They were like, oh, you weren't supposed to say that. You weren't supposed to say that, Joe. You weren't supposed to say that. These are mental lapses. These are not just gaffes. Insofar as gaffes are mental lapses, Joe Biden doesn't know where he is. He is in a Democratic primary. African Americans vote to a tune of 90% Democrat. Even if you look at what Joe Biden is doing here and says, oh God, you guys are hitting up for the identity politics stuff. Okay. Even if you say that, you're still in a political space. I keep saying this. Whatever you want to think about the debates matter. And the football match matters. Optics in this situation matters. Joe Biden is in a political contest. His only card is electability. And within the context of that card of electability, running in a Democratic primary, he draws a circle around his dicey relationship with blacks going back in the 90s and so forth, in the Reagan era and the Bush eras. But also right here, like these type of gaffes in a party where you have a large share of African Americans voting is problematic. My point here is not so much the identity politics stuff. It's more so in this thing of, does Joe Biden know where he is? He is running in a presidential race, a Democratic presidential race. A primary, by the way, that from a policy standpoint doesn't like him that much, doesn't jive with him at all. Meaning, the main thing that you're getting off on is electability. And if that falls apart, your campaign will fall asunder, just like it has for the last 40 years. And in the context of that, you're having one mental gaffe after the next that again gets across either there are problems with your political acumen or you don't know where you are. And issues of mental confusion should concern anybody that is trying to put their vote and support behind Joe Biden. I will put to you that Joe Biden doesn't know where he is.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
I need to clean that up.
Wealthy kids.
Right. That's what you were supposed to say, Joe. Wealthy. The honesty of it is what you thought came out, which gets across that you're losing a step. 20 years ago, you would have never did that. You would have just said, rich kids. And you would have kept on and nobody would have showed this video. This is not an issue about Joe Biden's age. I hope you understand that. Insofar as age in and of itself. But we're talking about a position that requires mental acuity. And it doesn't seem like Joe Biden's mental acuity has stood the test of time. That's not a negative. That's not a shot out at anybody who has age on him. This is more so an issue of the job. I wouldn't expect a person who's losing their eyesight to drive a truck to be a trucker in so much as I would expect a person who has mental illness or some kind of mental degradation to try to be president. He just wants to be president. It's not my job to allow him to want to be president just because he wants to be president. I want somebody who can do the job and who's mentally all together there. And that person is not Joe Biden. I'm sorry. It's safe to say that poor kids are better campaigners than Joe Biden, right, John Dunn? Right. And he could have cleaned that up. He could have said, look, African Americans in this society, based on historical trends and everything else, have a tendency, there's poverty within the community. He could have, there's all sorts of ways he could have cleaned that up. My point is, the cleanup was worse than how he actually went about doing it. And yeah, he could have found better ways to do that as opposed to comparing class to race. I mean, it gets weird because he's talking about a mental achievement and this notion of doing testing and that type of stuff. But he's immediately going from an issue of class into an issue of race. But it's class and race intertwined with this notion of intellectual pursuits and this notion of achievement. It's really bizarre, that kind of mistake. But again, is that a mistake Joe Biden would have made 20 years ago? I don't know. And if he's not mentally fit, which my argument is all of these things is getting across that Joe Biden is not mentally fit for this particular job, should he get support? I would say no. But clearly my horse is Sanders. But Sanders doesn't go out. Sanders knows where he is. So put it that way. Sanders knows where he is. I'm unclear as to whether Joe Biden does. And by the way, even in the debates, I mean, for the most part, he just got punched around in the debates. He was a punch doll. He was a punchy Judy doll. And somebody asked the question, is Joe Biden's debate strategy rope-a-dope? Or again, does he not know where he is and has he lost several steps? There is nothing wrong with that. Everybody gets older. It just is what it is. The question becomes whether that particular individual should get the job of presidency just because he wants the job of presidency. Any blind person, they may want to be truckers. It is up to the society to say, we're sorry. No. We're sorry, no. We're going to pass on that. All right, I'm going to end this. I saw this and I was like, he keeps making these mistakes. He keeps making these gaffes. And I have to be honest, I think against Trump, he has severe weaknesses, especially around the criminal justice issue. If Biden gets through the primary, mark my words and write down this video, his weaknesses in regards to criminal justice will come back to bite him in the ass, especially around blacks. Joe Biden is getting those votes now. Man, I suspect there are a lot of people out there who are looking at Biden thinking that he's more electable than Trump. My argument is that he is not. He has certain weaknesses that are there, that are present. And this notion of electability is just something that is in their heads. And it's not, in fact, the actual world. All of these people thought that Hillary Clinton was more electable and thought that she was going to beat Trump. They were wrong. They were wrong. 1,000 times they were wrong. Hillary Clinton even came out saying, okay, Sanders might have won. Their notions of electability have shown to be fallible, to say the least. I'll end it here. Thanks all. Like, share, subscribe.